All right, good morning or well, good afternoon, everybody. So today we're going to go over decimals, percents, and fractions. And what you need to remember about decimals, percents, and fractions is that they're all related. They're like cousins. Decimals can be turned into percents, percents can be turned into decimals, fractions can be turned into percents, so on and so forth. So all of them can be converted into each other. So let's jump right in and just go over a basic overview of how to turn each of these things, a decimal, percent, and fraction, into another one. So the first one we'll go over is fractions to percent. So for fractions to percent, all you have to do is just divide the numerator, which is the top number. That's always going to be the number at the top of the bar of the fraction bar, divided by the denominator, which is the bottom number. Then you have to multiply by 100, which is the same thing as moving the decimal over 2 places to the right. So for example, let's say we have 3/4 here. Now to turn that into a percent, all we have to do is divide the numerator by the denominator. So 4 divided by 3. Now obviously 4 can't go into 3 because 4 is a bigger number. So we know this is going to be a decimal. So we need to put our decimal in the quotient area. Then we got to add a 0. So then 4 can go into 30 7 times. 7 times 4 is 28. 30 minus 28 is 2. Then bring down another 0. 4 goes into 20 5 times. So it's 0.75, but to turn it into percent, remember we have to multiply by 100 or move the decimal over 2 places to the right. So if we just move the decimal over 2 places to the right, we have 75. So that's our percent, 75%. Okay, so let's try it with 7/10. So if we divide 10 by 7, and again, 10 cannot go into 7. So it's going to be a decimal. So we need to put our decimal up here, have our 0, add a 0. And then 10 goes into 70 7 times. 10 times 7 is 70. Subtracted, can't divide it anymore. So we have 0.7 or 7/10. And then see, remember you have 7/10, and that is exactly how we say 7/10. So we already know it's going to be 7/7/10. So we need to move the decimal 2 times. I'm running out of room here, sorry. It's not 720, so I'm going to put like a little border here so you don't get confused. So we move the decimal over 2 times to the right, so then we end up with 70%. Oh, a percent looks funny. Okay, that's okay. But see how it's 7/10 and then we have 70%. Later on in this video, we're going to go over some fractions and decimals and percentages to remember, and you'll see how 1/10, if you remember those specific fractions and percentages and decimals, you won't have to go through all of this because you'll remember those specific common fractions and decimals, but we'll go over that later. Okay, so now before I go into 2/5, I want you to try to do it on your own. Divide the numerator by the denominator, and I want you to see what number you get before I do it, and then check your answer with the video. So go ahead and pause the video, do it on your own, then start the video up again after you've done it. Okay, so you should have already done this on your own. So I'm going to show you really quick. So if you divide the numerator by the denominator, it's 5 into 2. Obviously can't put 5 into 2, so it's going to be a decimal. Add a 0, 5 goes in 20, 4 times, 5 times 4 is 20, so it is evenly divided. Then you got to move the decimal over twice, add a 0, so it is 40%. Okay, all right, so we now figured out how we can turn fractions into percent. now we're going to figure out how to turn a percent into a fraction. So something you need to remember. Okay, so this one is probably the easiest one to do because all you need to do is put the number over 100 and simplify. Now the reason why it's over 100, this is something I want you to all remember, because some of you, when I asked you what is percent out of, some of you were just like, I don't remember. Okay, percent, it's per cent. And the reason why they say cent is because cent for century, and century is 100 years. So it's literally saying per cent, or which equals per 100. So percent is always going to be out of 100. Okay, that's going to be the denominator always for your fraction because it is always out of 100. Okay, so for 9%, all you need to do is put the number over 100. And that's your fraction. It cannot be simplified, so we just leave it at 9/100ths. Okay, now for this one, I'm going to go over this one with you because for some of you, you might think this is a trick question. Okay, because we have 125%, which means there's 100% already in there. So that means we already have one whole in there. So let's use the same method. We have the number over 100, which is 125 over 100. Now that can be simplified because that is an improper fraction. So if we simplify it, it's actually one whole, because 125, there's 100 in there. It's going to be 25 over 100, but that can still be simplified. It should be 1, and 25 over 100, that is 1/4. And then we'll go over our baseline, our fractions and decimals and percentages to remember. Okay, so it's not a trick question. You can have a percentage that is more than 100. It just means that it's more than 100%. So if you have more than 100%, you're going to have 125 over 100. It's going to have one whole in there, and then part of another part. So in this case, 125 over 100 equals out to 1 25/100ths, or 1 1/4. Okay, so for this one, I want you to try to do this on your own before you go on with the rest of the video. So pause this video right now, try on your own, and then check your answer by restarting the video. Okay, so you should have already done this on your own. Now if you put 97 over 100, that is exactly the answer to turn 97% into a fraction. So this one is the easiest one. It's really simple because you just have to remember percentages are always out of 100. It's percent per 100. Okay.